Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and we love talking about Boys and Girls Club Middle Tennessee. We're honored to be joined by Allen Bolden. He's an alumnus and a board member, and also Jeff Darnell, club director with Boys and Girls Club Middle Tennessee. How are you two doing?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having us, Jeremy.
Absolutely. So you two have a unique personal storyline. We'll talk all about that, but let's start out. Amazing history, amazing legacy. Jeff, let's start with you. Give us some history when you talk about Boys and Girls Club Middle Tennessee.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having us. We really appreciate it. Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee started 120 years ago, actually before Boys and Girls Club of America was even formed. So we were one of the first groups to actually start a Boys and Girls Club in Tennessee. Of course, Boys and Girls Club started in 1860 in Hartford, Connecticut by three women who wanted to take care of the young men who were working in the plants, and they think they needed a positive place to be after they were working. So they opened up the clubs. And of course, where we are now is just so amazing, so amazing.
Give us some background on the number of centers, youth. Go ahead and dive in deeper. When you talk about Boys and Girls Clubs Middle Tennessee, give us some of the basics.
Well, like I said, Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee started 120 years ago. We've grown, and I've been with them 31 years. So I've watched us grow from 4 clubs to 6 to now 11. So we do have clubs in the Nashville area, of course, at Madison Middle, Eagleview. We've got them inside the schools. We've got them at Cleveland Park. The Andrew Jackson is a standalone club. We also have Chadwell, Preston Taylor, Franklin, Fairview, Glengarry, and Valor High School and Middle School. So we're reaching out to those youth, and it's grown even in the past couple of years from 5 to around 7,000. 7,000 youth being served. And of course, we're reaching out with Dub 100, which is where we're trying to get to serving 10,000 kids by 2026.
Absolutely. And so that gives us some context. And so let's stay on you, and then we'll switch over to Allen talking about personal experience as an alumnus. But when you talk about being a club director, you have a chance to impact the youth directly and to see all the magic happen. And this is after school, it's summer programs, it's so much more. It's even things like, studying and having jobs and internships and all these things. So paint the picture when you talk about what goes on at one of the centers. Go ahead and dive into the details.
Well, of course, when they come in, we want our kids to be happy, want them to have the optimal club experience, and that's really enjoying it. They're going to come in after school. So, there's going to be some kids are going to say, hey, we just left school. Why are we coming right back? But Let's Go Learn is one of our programs that gets them ready for that. It assesses where they are. It shows them how to grow and how to get the grades that they need. So we're pushing snacks and learning and fun. Fun is the key to it all. If we do exactly like our CEO, Mr. Eric Higgs, when he came up with the Dub 100 for 2026, he said, we want them ready to read, ready for class, ready to graduate, post-secondary education, of course, ready for a career, and then also the most important part, ready to serve your community. So that's what a day at Boys and Girls Club looks like, having our kids ready with programs like Passport to Manhood to help our young men understand what their role is, Smart Girls, to help our young ladies see what their role is as well. And just nurturing the youth is the key to our program.
Allen, this is a personal adventure for you. And so talk about being an alumnus, talk about what Boys and Girls Clubs mean to you.
Yeah, actually, thanks, Jeremy, again, for having us on. Mr. Jeff and I were talking about it yesterday. He was my club director when I was a kid. I know he looks like he's still about 30 years old, but and his energy's still of a 30-year-old. But it was about 25 years ago when I was in the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee at Thompson Lane, and Mr. Jeff and I were talking about it yesterday. It's once a club kid, always a club kid, and it's just it was an incredible experience back then. And I was part of a single parent household. My dad was raising me alone, and he was doing a fantastic job. And he also just realized that he could not get to where he wanted to be as, raising me as a single parent. And so he raised his hand and he signed me up for the Boys and Girls Club. And I think that's what it takes, is a parent raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm doing the best I can, but I need some more support. And the Boys and Girls Club is there and ready to serve all of these youth. They served me very well. They allowed me to have a safe place after school. When I first went into the Boys and Girls Club, I was just a scrawny, insecure kid that didn't like sports. I didn't really like interacting with a lot of people. I was pretty shy. And Mr. Jeff, he's not going to let you be shy for long, and he's going to get you connected, and help you understand what being in a community is like. And I came from a really athletic family, and so my dad not being able to part of what he couldn't do was develop my athletic interest and my ability. And Mr. Jeff and a lot of the other staff there, we would play basketball every day after school when I would come. And so they helped develop my athletic ability and my interest in athletics. And I eventually went on to play college baseball here in Nashville at Lipscomb. But I'm just really grateful for men like Jeff that they're still serving. And I could talk about it for a long time, but it was very impactful for me. But what's even more incredible is that they continue to try to be relevant. Not just in a cool way to have programs that interest kids, but actually these programs are developing kids. As Mr. Jeff said in the Dub 100, they're getting these kids ready to serve their community in an impactful and meaningful way.
What's cool is, so you look at the character and the confidence, that development, the athletics on your end too, but then now career plays such a big role in this as well. And so for both of you, talk about that aspect of really focusing on career and skill development as a next step.
We are trying to elevate that club experience for the youth. We have programs now where they are working with companies, whether it's construction, doing different types of things. I'm a painter, so of course my kids have to learn how to paint. It's going to be things that we share with them. If it's photography, then we'll find out which one of the kids love photography and we'll get them moving in that direction. We have a lot of former members that have doing photography on their own now because they started at the Boys and Girls Club. We have videographers that are filming videos all across town because they started doing it inside the club. So helping the youth understand where we should help them grow, whether it's digital, elevating their voices as teenagers. We've got a new teen center coming at the Andrew Jackson Club. We're looking forward to that. So a place that they can feel like it's really about them. And they know that they can stay there. They don't realize that this is a job, because to us and people that do it, it's not really a job. It is really a place that we can really nurture and build relationships. And that's crucial. And to make that impact on a life.
Yeah. And finding purpose and passion. And like you said, whether it's photography, music, production, there's so many different ways that the youth can find their passion and purpose, but also build careers. Exactly. Allen, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that, Mr. Jeff talks about it all the time when kids come in with their walls up, and I described it personally, what mine were. And I think that the first thing that they do is that they provide that structure and that supervision for a kid to feel safe and to let those walls come down, because you're talking to a brick wall if you don't do that first. And so I think that they do a really good job of maintaining that structure that they've had for so long that makes it feel safe. And then they really dive into what, if it's coding, or if it's career immersion or college test prep. Maybe it's a younger kid that really needs just some love and just, right. Mr. Jeff, he's really good at trick shots, and he with pool or basketball. And so he does he's able to have these deep conversations in between shots, and he just it's seamless. And he's a professional. He's truly a professional. And I find it interesting whenever I tell a story. He remembers some stories, but he's done this so many times to so many kids that it's hard for him to. That really says a lot to me when you talk to some of these staff. And they hear kids tell stories, they remember their face. That's what they remember the most. But they've impacted so many kids in such a deep and meaningful way. They've lost count, and they've lost track. And that's really incredible. And it's continuing to happen in a deep way.
Talk about the team and volunteers, and this will kind of lead us in a new direction. But when you talk about transforming lives, just like you're talking about, Allen, it's a lot of the pouring in one-on-one, right? Like it's building a relationship. It's someone saying, hey, I love you. I got your back. I'm going to help you. I'm here for you. And so when you talk about then scaling that and reaching more youth, it takes more people stepping in to power the good in terms of what you're doing. So talk about your team, talk about volunteers, talk about the adults stepping in to support the programs and youth.
I always ask volunteers, even when people just approach me and say they want to help out, we send them, of course, to bgcmt.org, the website. They can join us on Facebook at bgcmid10.org, or they can join us on Instagram. But once they are involved and they find the club where they want to be, I share with them it's very important to share who you are and share not every story, but share what you love and find yourself in that club, because that's what it did for me, to find the person that was me, having a hard time, doesn't want to talk. Me, of course, I was a smart kid, but if you look at my report cards, you see a lot of writing at the bottom about my behavior. So I look for those guys and I help them understand. And those young ladies who are having that hard time, that's the ones we have to reach. And then they reach out. And to see those kids grow up and kind of grasp onto, hey, this person really does care. I'm not with you thinking you're going to be a movie star or a professional, anything. We're there because we care. And I think that's the most important for our volunteers to understand as well.
Yeah. And you saw that firsthand, Allen, obviously. So what would you add on that front?
Yeah, so I mean, I think when I went, it was you walked in and you had a choice to go play basketball or go upstairs and play ping pong and pool. And so or the third option, I'm sorry, I always forget, it was study hall. And,
right,
and
gotta
so
have study.
that's where it was. And there were club directors or staff that were spread throughout, and there was always an interaction, either a fun one or sometimes when you were not doing so well, there was a teaching moment. And so, as Mr. Jeff said, a lot of writing at the bottom of the report card. But I think, the study hall portion is what I have a lot of stories from that as well, because I needed to go in there. But now when you go into the clubs, and this is what, if you look at the board is a very, very talented and incredible board they've put together. And they provide a lot of experience to give ideas for programming, but also these professional immersive career exposure events they're doing, and then just planning different events. But then when you go and you look at the staff at the club and you watch them serve, I went in a couple of weeks ago to the Andrew Jackson Club after school. And I really wanted to play basketball. It was the beginning of basketball season. And I said, why's the gym empty? And they said, well, we're doing a required 2-hour learning session.
Right.
And so everybody's sitting down learning from high school down to elementary school. And I had to, kind of check myself because I really wanted to play basketball. And I sat down and started working through problems, different math problems, English problems, different work that the kids were doing. And I found it to be so incredibly just a great experience to sit down with these kids, because you're really impacting them, because they really want to learn these things that they're looking at. They're bought in on it, and it's just fun to be a part of that. And the staff can only stretch so far. So when you're going in there and actually sitting down and giving one-on-one time with a kid, you'll be shocked, because when you try to walk away, they'll grab your arm and ask you to stay. And so it's they really, really love when people come by and serve. And so that's I encourage people all the time, if you even if you can't give money, even if you can't serve on the board, just make a day a month to go by and stop at a club and just see how it is impacting these kids, and see how you can interact with it in an impactful way.
Absolutely. Yeah. The volunteerism is definitely a huge way to get involved, in a huge need, just like we're talking about, to build those relationships, those friendships that ultimately lead to amazing things in the future. And so talk about March 17th, because normally we'd be wearing green, but in this case, we're going to be encouraged to wear blue. So talk about why blue is so important and why March 17th matters.
It's important for me because I think that 120 years is something a lot of people don't know about, but more importantly, it's going to spark a conversation to get people aware of the Boys and Girls Clubs, activity in the community today. Even as a club kid, I went through a period as an adult where I didn't really realize the impact that the clubs were still having in the community. You sort of separate from it. So learning the history of it, of 120 years, wearing the blue shirt on St. Patrick's Day, instead of the green shirt, is going to bring awareness and a conversation around what the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee are doing. And I'm really excited about wearing a blue shirt that day to spark some conversations on why I'm not wearing green.
And obviously blue is the color for Boys and Girls Club Middle Tennessee. So when you talk about why blue, that's obviously the focus. But, you know, just like you're talking about, it's to celebrate 120 years and to spark those conversations that leads to more awareness, deeper understanding of the impact and the efforts. And so that's the idea there. Part of that, too, is encouraging the community to get involved. The goal is $1.2 million of new investment, obviously tied to 120 years. So you've been talking about kind of the efforts to double the impact. And so talk about why $1.2 million is so important to Boys and Girls Clubs Middle Tennessee.
I know we've got probably around 42,000 youth in Middle Tennessee right now who can benefit from a structured program like the Boys and Girls Club, because it is supervised, it has fun, safe activities, and it provides services for the family. One of the things that I share with my youth now is when I bring members back that are doing certain things. I have doctors at Vanderbilt. I have firemen who are riding around on trucks. I have people who are running their own businesses, and have them come back and speak to those children. It doesn't just inspire them. It inspires their parents, and it inspires the family. And so I think that when we talk about pulling youth into this program, we know a lot are living in some hard situations, and we have to express that. I had a family member share with me the other day they had no TV in the home. So it's things that we have to think about that help us understand why the youth are in a certain position, why they feel a certain way, why they feel like the world is not connected to them. So we bring that up with the elevating their voices, letting them let us know what they need, but also growing in digital and making sure we have things like Club Next, which was started this last year, which is just a virtual program for those youth who are at home schooled and not in a school setting. So getting out there and reaching these families and letting them know why we're here, that's what the 120 years is about. All kids wearing blue, doing different activities every day. I tell people, go online and look at some of those stories and you'll see why it's a great investment. It's a wonderful investment. And we do it with other events too as well.
Yeah, I'm about to say you have a number of high-profile events, Steak and Burger, and when you look at all the different events, you have, you know, volunteer opportunities, obviously giving throughout the year, those sort of financial gifts. You have the big events, you have small events, you have so many ways that people can plug in and support your efforts. The website, again, as you mentioned, BGCMT.org. So it's the initials for Boys and Girls Club Middle Tennessee. So BGCMT.org is the website. Also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all over the place. So tons of easy ways to connect in, learn more, and be a part of the celebrations for 120 years and 120 more ahead. So definitely appreciate all you do, Allen Bolden and Jeff Darnell. Thank you so much for you and your amazing team. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us, Jeremy.